Welcome back, everyone. Well, all you have to do is turn on the tube, go online, read a newspaper, and you certainly understand that immigration has really surfaced to the forefront of the conversation in this country. And not always the kind of conversation that you'd like to hear. Frequently you hear this mass invasion of people are coming into this country, that they're criminals, that they're gang members, that they're taking advantage of the people who live here, without any real recognition for the fact that this is a country that's built on immigration. If we didn't, all of us, if we didn't have a history of parents and grandparents and family members who came from any number of different countries around the world, we wouldn't even have a United States of America. But where's the balance? And joining me today, a friend of mine for over 45 years, this is Terrance Diggory. Welcome, Terrance.
Thank you.
And the reason I asked Terrance to join us is that Terrance is very involved in this issue in our community. He is a coordinator for the Welcoming Immigrants Committee here for the Presbyterian Congregational Church right here in Saratoga. And that, of course, is affiliated with the Saratoga Immigration Coalition, and then it expands from there. And I'm not even going to try to get into it. I'm lucky I made it that far, Terrance.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you. Terrance and I, by the way, were neighbors for a better part of 30-something years, so that's how we know each other. The unaccompanied children seems to be a spot in this debate that people don't really seem to understand the scope of it or the emotional impact, the spiritual impact, and any number of different things that you would drive, that you would go down to try to understand this conversation. We always want to talk about things in our community, Terrance, but let's talk about unaccompanied children coming into this country. What kind of numbers are we talking about?
The Office of Refugee Resettlement, which is the government agency responsible for unaccompanied migrant children, currently has in custody 12,500 children.
I've heard ages from as young as 2, which tends to make you think that this is one of those situations where a child is taken away from their parents. Majority of children, though, in their early teens, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Those are obviously the children that are capable of coming in on their own. As you say, a child at the age of 2, you have to imagine, was separated from their family. The government says that they're no longer doing family separation, but it has been documented by publishers like the New York Times that, in fact, that is still occurring.
Now, in our greater region here, let's just say New York City North, I counted there were probably 11 different shelters that are under contract with the federal government to be able to accept some of these migrants, correct?
Right. Yes, most of them are based in the New York City area. They are long-established child welfare agencies. In some cases, their history goes back to the 19th century, in fact.
Oh, really?
And they are under contract, as you say, to take children who are in government custody, to care for them while they are waiting to find sponsors, usually family members already in the country who can take them into personal care.
Would that also include foster care if they can't find a sponsor or find a family member?
Yes, it can.
Okay. And from those shelters, then they would reach out to organizations like the Saratoga Immigration Coalition and just say, how can we work together?
Well, the Saratoga Immigration Coalition is an unofficial, informal organization. So they would not be formally working with the government, but members of the Saratoga Immigration Coalition have been involved in some of these shelters. So we had a panel that you've mentioned at Skidmore last week, and one of the participants in that was Judy Beck, who is a local social worker from Saratoga Springs, and she was invited down to the Children's Village in Westchester County to interview children down there.
Now, the forum that he's referring to was at Skidmore last week, and that was the topic was migrant children in government custody, correct?
Right.
Really well attended, by the way. Terrance, I think you told me over 200 people attended this. Look, there's a lot of interest in our community about this, and if you just think about it, even selfishly, you want to start there? We need immigrants. We need migrants in our community. If you just look at the track and if you look at farming throughout any of the counties that we live in, they've been under pressure lately, haven't they? These families.
Absolutely.
In what ways, Terrance?
Yeah. Well, the word from the federal government is that you're not welcome if you're here without documentation, and that detention efforts, the efforts to bring people into custody, have been ramped up, even though the government says basically, as you mentioned, immigrants are criminals and security risks. In fact, the people that have been brought into detention are largely people who have been contributing members of the community, very often without criminal records. And so everybody in the country who is here without documentation is being made fearful.
Right, yeah. The theory there, of course, is that if you're undocumented, you're a criminal. When in reality, I think Terrance was telling me that 2/3 of people that are in trouble are people that have just overstayed their welcome, that they came here with visas and overstayed the expiration date of that visa. But in the meantime, during that whole period, we're contributing members, paying taxes, living here, doing, and obviously contributing to our economy.
And it also means that when they came in with a visa, at that time, they were obviously
vetted.
not seen as a security risk. So they were given permission to enter. So to the extent that they are in violation with federal regulations, the violation is that they didn't leave when they were supposed to.
You know, I think the overriding thing, and then in a minute we're just going to talk about what we can do in our community. This was a country that was founded on welcoming immigrants and welcoming migrants, and somehow that conversation has turned into they're a threat. And I, like you and like a lot of us, we're thinking to ourselves, how do we get from there to there? When in reality, as we've talked about, even in our own community, if you look at farming and if you look at the track, you look at healthcare too, by the way. That's another industry where people who are immigrants or migrants coming into this country are taking jobs to help support the economy and the well-being of the people in our community. On a local level, Terrance, what would you advise our audience to do?
Well, the first thing is to simply get educated. That is to become aware of who is in our community. One of the things that we do with the Saratoga Immigration Coalition is we have a series of storytelling events where we invite immigrants from the community to simply spend time with an audience at Cafe Lena in Saratoga Springs. And the immigrants tell their stories, how they got here, why they came to the country. So we're trying to raise awareness that we are a very diverse community and that we thrive on that diversity. So education is one thing. Participation is another thing. The Saratoga Immigration Coalition welcomes volunteers. We will help, depending on their skills, we will help to place them in some sort of capacity where they can be a help immediately in the community, whether it means translating, delivering food,
transportation,
helping with transportation.
Right.
There are a variety of things that people can do to help members of the local community. And then a third thing that people can do is to advocate for changes in government policy, both at the state level and at the national level. Right now, Congress at the national level is in such gridlock that there doesn't seem to be a lot of immediate hope for changes in immigration policy at that level. But in New York State, right now, there have already been some major advances in provisions for immigrants, and there's hope for further legislation, for instance, with regard to the ability of immigrants, regardless of their legal status to obtain driver's licenses.
Got it. I'm in the media, and we're all very subject to soundbite mentality in these days. You look at a headline online, you get a notice on your phone, you watch something on television. Really encourage all of us to become more educated about this. This is a situation that we really do need to address, and you can volunteer in any number of ways. You can help them legally, you can help them with transportation. You can help if you translate. Just think about that. The fear of not understanding what someone is actually saying to you. And advocate. We have the power to vote. We're in a democracy. I'm not trying to wash over this subject. There are a lot of opinions on both sides, and everyone needs to be heard. But unless you're educated, unless you get involved, unless you use the power of democracy, you don't have any right to say anything. You know what I mean, Terrance? Yep. So I just thank you for calling us,
sure,
making us aware of this.
Well, thank you,
and for all the work that you're doing. Is there a website or anything that someone can go to?
The Saratoga Immigration Coalition has a Facebook page, so you just on Facebook type in Saratoga Immigration Coalition, and you would find that. So that would be probably the best way to get in touch with the coalition.
Great. Okay, Terrance. Great to see you again.
Good to be with you, Jesse.
Thanks. See this interview again. You can head to our website, looktvonline.com.